Hi, I'm Chef Gail Sokol and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making a spiced apple pie. And this is a two-crust pie that's loaded with apples and it's spectacular and it is freezerable, so you can make it ahead and freeze it. And you will be making many people happy in your family and of your friends. It's perfect for the holidays. So please give this pie a try. It is so flaky and appley. And before we get started, I would love for you to become a subscriber and click on the notification button so you can see all my videos as they come out. All right, so let's get started. Flaky pie crust time. I like to make mine in a food processor. You've seen me do this time and time again. I favor a cream cheese crust. If you want to do all butter, by all means do it. In my food processor bowl, I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and I like to add just a little something extra, which is a little baking powder. Just gives it a little bit of puff, not too much, just a little bit. This is 1/8 of a teaspoon plus 1/4 of a teaspoon. All right, I'm just gonna pulse it with my flour just till it's combined. And then I'm going to add, my cream cheese first. So I have cubed, this is cold cream cheese, cubed. It's 6 3/4 ounces or about 1 cup. All right, so I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna scatter it around as best you can, as best as you can scatter cream cheese, because cream cheese is not something that likes to be scattered. And then we're actually going to just pulse. All right, we're just gonna pulse it. And I'm moving that away because you'll see why. Puff and pulse. And you're gonna pulse until the cream cheese breaks down to little pieces. You don't even have to look at it. It's probably gonna be about maybe 8 pulses. Just joking, but you can see. See, it's like little pieces in there, little pieces. Now it's butter time. So here I have 2 sticks and 2 tablespoons of super cold, it's gotta be cold, unsalted butter cubed, like 1/2 inch cube pieces. But you don't have to go crazy, just cubes, it's all going in here. And that's a lot of butter because that's gonna help with our flakiness. And butter tastes the best. So here we're going for pea-sized pieces. All right, so you're gonna pulse it again, pulse, until you get about pea-sized pieces. It might be 10 to 15 pulses, don't count. Whatever it is, just pea size. You're not forming any true gluten yet until our water comes in here. So let's check it out and see. Be careful when you put your hands in a food processor, but you can see there's little bits of butter in here. Some are a little bit bigger than others, it's fine. Now, my secret tip is I put in an acid. An acid makes the dough more extensible, more easily rolled out, and you will thank me later. Some people use vodka, and I'm not gonna do that. Some people can use an acid like a citrus juice, like orange juice or lemon juice. I'm gonna just use apple cider vinegar. So I'm gonna put it in at this point. It's a tablespoon and 1.5 teaspoons. Remember, this is a 2-crust pie, a super generous 2-crust pie. Oh, did I tell you? It's a massive 10 inches in diameter, so it's a big pie. It's a big girl, all right? And then I'm going to add 3 to 4 tablespoons of ice water. This is the first ingredient you get ready when you make a flaky pie crust. Chef Gail says, you get your ice water ready because none of this fat, the butter, the fat in the cream cheese, none of it should be melting. You wanna make sure you get the flakiest crust when it goes into the oven. All right, so let's do about 3 or 4, let's do 4. We may have to add more. 2, this is 2, count with me. 3, and we're gonna do 4. If we have to add more, we will. And you're just gonna pulse until it comes together, all right? Don't expect it to be a beautiful ball of dough right away, because it may not be. All right, just gonna pulse it a little. And sometimes I just leave it on, and therefore it's not sort of pulsing, and then I'm gonna stop. So it's sort of a rough, you're gonna see, it's not a ball of dough. It's sort of a mishmash, all right? That's why I like to pour it into a bowl before I chill it. And pie crusts always need to be chilled. And this is a double crust, so it's a big crust. All right, I needed a bigger bowl, but I'm going to put it in here. Be careful of that middle piece. I'm holding on to that blade because the blade can cut you. Then they're done that. All right. All right. So we're going to get all this good stuff in there. Empty out your bowl, and I've emptied it all out. Okay, you can see that. And now, you don't want to knead it. You just want to push it against the sides of the bowl and gather it. All right. And once it's gathered, you're going to put it in plastic wrap. You're going to wrap it, and you're going to put it into the refrigerator for about maybe an hour or two, even up to 3 or 4 days. And you can even date it, label it, and freeze it for up to 3 or 4 months. So I can even speed this process along and put it in my freezer for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to gather. I'm going to put this into my plastic wrap, and I'll see you after it's chilled. All right, are you ready to make our spiced apple pie filling? I am. This is my dough that I have allowed to stay in the fridge. It's been in the fridge about an hour, and it's nice and firm. We needed to let the gluten relax because we really want the flakiest pie crust ever. So if you let this relax, the butter gets chilled and never melts. I'm going to put it aside because it's still a little hard. Now, filling. So first we want to get our sugar and our thickening agent, our flour, and our spices for the spiced apple pie all together. And you want to do that first. You don't want to put your spices right into your sliced apples because one apple will get all the spices and not share with anybody else because they're sort of moist. Apples tend to be moist. So I'm going to read this to you to make sure my recipe comes to you and you see what the amounts are. So in a nice large medium bowl, I have a half a cup of granulated sugar, half a cup of dark brown sugar. I love dark brown sugar. It just has a little more molasses in it, has a deeper, richer flavor, and I packed it. So half a cup of each. I put them in here, all right? And now I'm going to put in 1/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour. That's our thickening agent. And then I'm going to put in all of our spices, and we got a lot of spices here. 5 spices. You can add more or less of these spices or change them around if you'd like. It's up to you. So I'm a big cinnamon gal. So I have 1.25 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I have 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. I have 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice. I love cloves and allspice. Love them. All right, in it goes. Okay, get it all in there. And now we whisk. All right, now we whisk. All right, now we put our hands in because I really want to get these mixed up really nice. Now, once this is mixed up and blended, then it can go in to the apples because now each apple slice will sort of be buffered with the flour and the sugar, and the spices will be sort of blended together with everything else, okay? So I'm going to put everything on top of 8 cups of thinly sliced apples. You can use any firm apple you like. I used a combination of Snapdragons. I think I used a few McIntosh, Rome, Granny Smith, whatever you want, all right? Whatever you want. And we're not going to fill this pie too high. The reason is I want to try to get a lattice on there. And we're going to make a different type of lattice. And you can do whatever you want. If you don't want a lattice, don't worry about it. But I have a beautiful 10-inch decorative pie pan. And I put it on a nice large sheet pan covered with aluminum foil. And now I'm going to toss. And you want to do this gently. You don't want to break your apples, but you want them all to be tossed with your spice sugar flour blend. Oh, I can smell them. I can smell all the spices. So good. And it just smells like apple pie. And then what I'm going to do is set this aside. Apples undergo sort of, the whole thing will undergo osmosis, right? Because apples have water in them. And a little bit of the water is going to seep out because water goes from a higher concentration of itself to a lesser concentration of itself. And the spices are lower concentration of water. So the water will seep out of the apples and sort of make like a little moist, syrupy yumminess that will add to our apple pie. So we just want it to sit for a little while before we actually use it. So you can see it's already happening. It's gorgeous. And I'm going to put it aside. Quick wash of the hands. And then we're going to start rolling out our crust. And because we made a very large crust, I'm going to cut about a third of this crust off and use it for the bottom. And I'm going to roll it into a 12 by 14 inch circle. I've wrapped it like Tutankhamun in ancient Egypt. And you can see, look at this glorious pie crust. You can see little bits of butter, cold butter. That's going to guarantee us a flaky pie crust. Guaranteed. All right, so now, you know how I always say, when you make bread, don't use a lot of flour. Pie crusts are different. You're going to want flour. So I have some all-purpose flour. I'm going to flour my work surface generously, and we're going to brush it off when we have too much, if we have too much. I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to cut, I'm going to say a little, maybe a third, maybe a little bit more than a third, straight down. Okay, I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to open up one of my pieces of plastic wrap and put this aside. All right. And then I'm going to bring my sheet pan over. Okay. And I'm going to sort of roll this, and I'm going to get this into a round shape, and it's pretty firm. If you need to, set it aside for a little while. Do not put it in the microwave. You will cook it, and you will melt the fat, and you will not get a flaky pie crust. So see what I'm doing with my hands? My hands are warm because you're 98.6, most of us, right, our body temperature. So just sort of can see it softening as I do that. And then I'm going to get my rolling pin, and I'm going to roll my rolling pin in the flour as well, and I'm going to start rolling. This is where you really feel it in your abs. So if you're doing this right, you're going to really feel this in your abs. And I have a ruler here, so I'm going to try to do between 12 and 14 inch round. And if it cracks a little, I don't care because we can patch. But it is beautiful. And remember, we added that cider vinegar, that acid. This is where it's going to come in handy because it's going to make our pie crust more extensible. That's a baker's term for easier to roll out. I'm all for that, right? I am all for that. All right. I'm going to try to get it about between 1/4 and 1/8 inch thick. We don't want it too thick. And I'm just going to flip it over. You should always be able to move your pie crust. If you can't move it, you're not using enough flour. All right, I always tell my students that. If you can't move it and it really breaks into a gazillion pieces, you are not using enough flour. Woo! I think I'm getting my aerobics in. I'm going to move this aside. And I think I have my weight in flour here, and I'm going to make sure I can move it, and I can. All right, so you're just going to try. You don't have to lift it up like I did, but you can just sort of rotate it. All right, and you can brush the flour off with your hands, or you can brush it off with a pastry brush, up to you. So right now I'm about 14 in diameter. This is good. I'm going to go a little bit thinner because I think that my pie crust is going to be too thick, and I don't want it too thick. So again, you're going to see, you don't want to see through it. You don't want it too thin. And then what I'm going to do, just going to brush this off. I think I can do it with my hands. All right. You're going to take your pie your pie pan, you're just gonna sort of gaze and see, do I have it wide enough? I'm just gonna go a little bit wider. All right. All right. Now I'm gonna cut it. Not cut it, I'm going to bend it, fold it. All right, I'm gonna fold it in half. And this is what the extensibility does. It actually helps you do this without it breaking. It's almost like you're folding a little napkin or a towel. And then what you're gonna do is, I'll bring the pie pan over. You're gonna put this point in the center and you're gonna unfold it. Unfold your napkin, your crust napkin, and gently, without pulling it, because you don't want to pull on your gluten and actually make your pie crust shrink when it's baking. You're going to put it, and yes, you have a lot of excess. That's what we want. We want excess. We like excess, especially for pie crust. We like excess. We're going to cut that off in a minute. And any part that's not perfectly even, you're going to just feel it and make sure that it's in, that there's no air pockets on the outside. Now I'm going to take a knife and I'm just going to go maybe half an inch to an inch around without cutting yourself, and just cut that excess dough off. Just go around. You can even use a scissor if you would like, because we're going to crimp it after. It's going to be gorgeous. All right, I still have a little bit there that I want to keep. Just keep it going. And now we're going to fill and make our lattice. If you don't want to do a lattice, all you have to do is roll out another piece of dough, the same size, do the same thing, but this time you would make a few slits in the center. You can even take an apple, like an apple cookie cutter, and make an apple and cut it out, because you just want some steam vents. All right, now we're ready for our filling. Let's put our filling in here, and you can see, look at the filling. It got nice and moist, but it's not runny. We're just gonna put that in there. All right, if it gets too runny, you don't want the liquid. That's why I have that slotted spoon. And we're gonna get that all in there. All right. 8 cups is just enough for a 10-inch. And if you're not making a lattice, you could probably go for 9 cups if you wanted. Woo! Those spices are intoxicating. I'm gonna move that over. And now I'm just gonna push. Get my apples sort of facing in one direction. Okay. Push them down. You really don't want to see any air pockets in between the apples, so push. Push, push, push. You can even use your hands and push it down. All right? Okay. There we go. All right, so we're going to set that aside. All right. And because I have a little liquid there, I'm going to get rid of that. And now I'm going to take the remainder of my dough and I'm going to roll it to as big a rectangle as I can for about the diameter of the pie. All right, so if I measure my pie, it's a 10-inch pie. I'm going to make it about 11 inches. I'm going to shush my flour back over because I had a lot. Remember, you need a lot of flour. Keep this in a rectangular shape because we're trying to get as many, use your abdominal muscles. We're going to try to get as many rectangular strips as we can. And you're going to want a pizza wheel. All right, you don't have to measure these, you can just eyeball them. But we're going to make something sort of fun. I like to have fun with my apple pie. Because, you know, apple pie is just so beautiful. I mean, people say, oh, it's so ordinary. Nah, it's not ordinary. It's delicious. And you can really do a lot of different things. If you wanted, you could even put chopped candied ginger, you know, crystallized ginger in, if you wanted, or raisins, or mix a little pears in with the apples. Some people like to do that. I'm a purist. My family likes it traditional apple pie. And I can't disagree. Oh, it sounds like I'm running a marathon. Because the pie crust is cool, as it should be. And you want to not handle it as much as you can, all right? So we're trying to roll it out. And you don't want it too thick. And we're trying to get as many strips as we can. Okay. Woo! Get a little more flour. Shush some under if you need to. Remember, you should always be able to move it. All right, and if you need a little bit more, we'll use a little bit more. Okay? So you have to watch what you put flour on. It can dry things off, but a pie crust, you really want to make sure that nothing's sticking. So give yourself some time to do this if you want to go fast. And I've been in a hurry to make my apple pie, and then I don't. I don't make a lattice. I make just the plain, beautiful top. And that works nice too. All right. I'm going to move this. We're still a little thick, and I want to get it a little bit longer. Okay. Yep. Here we go. Now it's softening a little bit, which is good. So I have my little, whoop. All right. Be patient. Take your time with this. I like to enjoy this process. So it's almost going to look like either a big rectangle or a big square. As long as it doesn't look like, a circle or God knows what else, like an ellipse. You really want to make it relatively rectangular because it makes it easier to make those strips. All right. And why am I making it so long? Because I want to do something a little bit different with my lattice. All right, so we are at about 14, which is good. This is good. And we're a little rough on the edges. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I see it. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to try to go right to the end. Okay. Woo! All right. Can we move it? Yes, we can. All right. So I'm going to take pizza wheel, and we're going to go get this little bit off that's uneven. And I'm going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. These I like to bake off later and either make little apple shapes or a little cinnamon sugar on top of them. So I'm going to do like really thin. See if I can do like as many as I can, because we want to intersperse these little strips, but I'd love to make 2 or 3 for each lattice section instead of just like a thicker strip like you mostly see in like peach pies, or you don't usually see an apple lattice pie. That's what makes it so fun. You can even make these thinner if you want, or thicker. Keep going. Keep your eye on how thick it is so you don't make them too thick or too thin. Now, some are different thicknesses. It may look very cool because it's going to look very artsy. You know what I mean? Sort of artsy. And then you'll have all your relatives for the holidays saying, oh, you're being very competitive. And next year you might see some lettuce pies coming from your cousins that you didn't expect because they got the competitiveness from you. All right, so keep going. Keep going. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop. Now, I'm going to take 2 instead of 3. I was going to take 3 at once. I'm going to take 2. And I'm going to put them like over here. Okay, and I'm just going to line them up. You see what I'm doing? Just lining them up, just one next to the other. And we're going to see if we can do this. All right. And if we can't do it, we're going to do a modification. Sometimes you have to think on your feet. Okay. Okay. And just push it down. It's got to be level. You want it level. And I'm just going to keep going. I think I'm going to need these little strips. And I can even roll out the remainder of my, if I need more of my scrap, I can use those too. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going to fold every other two. So go by two. So two leave, two fold back, two leave, two fold back. We'll see if we can get this to work. Two leave, two fold back. Whoops. And if it breaks, don't worry about it, because it won't matter in the end. Now we're going to put two in the middle, right across the middle, and then we're going to go back with this one. Okay, back with this one. Okay. Put the ones that you pulled out, pull them back. The ones that you pulled back, and gently, be gentle with them. Okay, especially if they're a little thinner. And now you're going to take, depending on how much dough you have left, so you're going to take two leave, two back on this side, two leave, meaning leave in place, pull back, two leave, pull back in place. Now I'm going to take two more. I love doing this. So much fun. All right, and now you're going to put them back. Oh, so pretty. And you can make them as compact as you want. If you want them a little bit closer together, use more strips. It's up to you. Now on this side, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to go two leave. We're going to, let's see, if we went under, over, we want to go under here. So we're going to leave. Nope, we're going to pull back. So we're going to do the opposite of what we did on the other side. Okay. You got to think about it. It's almost like, like a puzzle. All right. And then we're going to, and if you did it wrong, don't worry about it. It's still going to look gorgeous. Okay. Now we're going to pull it back. All right. Pull the ones that you pulled out. Pull back. Pull back. I pulled too many back. We'll put you back. Okay, and pull you back. Okay. Now you're going to do the opposite. You're going to pull these back. These back. Depending on how many more strips you have. All right, we can do a few more. This looks awesome. I love it. I love it. Then we're going to trim and crimp. So I finished my lattice. And if you messed up, I think I messed up a little bit, don't worry about it. It looks gorgeous. I'm just going to cut with a knife where my little strips meet my 1-inch overhang, and then we're going to crimp. So just cut those. Be careful when you cut those, and then these can be baked off. Like I said, they can be cinnamon sugared. You can re-roll them. When you re-roll them, you increase the gluten formation, so they may not be as flaky, but that's okay. They'll be delicious. Sometimes I cut them in leaf shapes and put them on other pies, like pumpkin or on top of pecan pie or even on top of this apple pie. So now that you see that it's all under, now I'm going to take an egg and I'm just going to use a little bit of an egg wash around. All right, so in between these strips, you're just going to have to lift it up. All right, you just want to seal it a little bit. If you don't want to use egg, you can actually use water if you wanted to. I've done both, but we're going to also egg wash the top of the pie. So just go around and make that seal so that once we crimp, things will not bake apart. And we don't want that. You don't want baking apart. All right, so just go around. And this is just one whole egg that I've beaten with a fork. All right. I'm just going to go around, and then we'll do the top of the pie in a little while and sugar it. Make it really pretty. So my oven is preheated to 425 Fahrenheit. And we're going to bake this for 20 minutes once we get it sugared and egg washed. And then we're going to lower the temperature to 375 and bake it for another 20 minutes. Oh, I forgot to cut you off. I got to cut you off. All right, hold on. I'll be back. I'll be back with a knife. So, make sure you take a look at the pie before you put it in the oven to make sure that it's just right. All right, and those have all been done. So I'm going to take my knife, whack that off. And now with your fingers, you can do whatever you want. You could just take a fork. You could do whatever you wanted. I'm just going to go around and press the strips together with the bottom crust just to seal them and also extend them a little and make them a little bit more workable that my fingers can grab onto them. And then I'm going to roll them under. I'm going to roll them under. And you can see my plate is got a little fluting to it. It doesn't have to. You can actually, this is like a deep dish pie. You could actually use a non-deep dish pie if you want, but the deep dish is really nice. So this is a 10-inch deep dish. I'm just going to go like that, going all the way around, all the way around. Tuck, 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 tuck. All right. And I hope you load up on vanilla ice cream or whipped cream, because this pie is going to be crying for it. Go around, 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 and squeeze down. All right. And then I just sort of push, push, push. And if you want to make it a little bit fancier, you could go around and just do that. Just to give it a little crimp, 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 crimp. All right. That looks nice too. All right, so you do whatever you want, whatever you feel that you want to do. You're just trying to really seal the top and bottom crust. Because if you don't seal, and if your fingers are getting a little bit wet, just flour them gently without over flouring. You don't want to over flour at this point. All right, and just give a little. So I'm just going like that. I'm making like a little V shape so that it actually seals them together and makes like a little crimping. Okay, I'm going to go around and rotate it. And we're going to bake this to the point where the apples are going to be bubbly and the liquid is going to bubble through the lattice. And that's how you know it's done. And the crust should get nice and golden brown. All right, so that's what you should have when you are done. All right, and there you have it. Now we're going to egg wash lightly. So I have that whole egg that we have used to adhere the bottom and top crusts. We're just going to egg wash lightly. And what you want to do now, because we're going to sugar it, you're going to watch and make sure that it doesn't burn in the oven. So at 425, only 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes, and then we lower the heat to 375. Try to get in every nook and cranny if you can, gently. All right. Okay, now we're going to sugar. We're going to sugar it. You can use granulated. You can also use turbinado, you know, that raw sugar. If you want to, it's got a little bit, it's more raw, so it has a little more molasses in it. And it's a more coarse texture. But I like to just put a little glaze on there, and that should be caramelized and add to the browning. And the yolk of the egg will also help browning. So 425, 20 minutes. If it gets too dark at any point, you can cover it with a little foil. Just lightly lay a piece of foil on top and put it back in the oven. So right now, 425, 20 minutes. lower the heat to 375, another 20 minutes, and then leave it in for another 20 if it needs it, all right? So my spiced apple pie is out of the oven, and it's beautiful. And even from the scraps, remember I told you you can cut them into little shapes? Well, I had some cookie cutters in the shape of leaves, and now I can decorate. You don't want to bake the leaves on top of your apple pie because they could burn because they're so small. So I'm just going to arrange a few to look really pretty on top. And this should do you proud for the holidays or any time, because it's always time for apple pie, especially a spiced apple pie. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you become a subscriber. I hope you make this pie. Until next time.